An insider, I'm Will Vandervoort, and you recognize this guy here beside me, our new TCI college football analyst, Tajh Boyd, Clemson All-American, first team All-American, and the guy who started all this that we've been seeing the last several years. First of all, welcome, Tajh. Just glad to have you here.
Well, look, hashtag Team TCI.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun season, man. We're going to chop it up. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk ball. Most importantly, we're going to get out here and we're going to tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love talking to you, man. You know I do, because you are one of my favorites when I covered you, and one of my favorites still today, you know, because you're so personable. You always told it like it is. Even if we wrote something that you didn't like, you tell us like it is. And that's one thing we always enjoyed. So we're going to start this off for you to tell us like it is. First of all, give me your thoughts on this Clemson football team and your expectations as they head into the 2018 season.
Well, I mean, I think realistically, when you look at this team, I mean, we keep saying the same thing every year. This team is doing better than ever before. And it's consistently coming to the point where Clemson is doing that. They're evolving every year. They're maturing every year. And there's no exception to this particular team right now. I think the defense is obviously stacked up. We all know that. Arguably the best college football front four in the history of, from an offensive standpoint. I mean, they got more weapons now than they've had in a long time here. You know, we got some exceptional freshmen coming into gear. Look forward to seeing what they're going to do Saturday against Furman. But the quarterback race is something that's just going to be ongoing all season. So it's always going to be that debate. There's always going to be conversation about it. Those guys at the end of the day just have to get out there and play and just work it out on the field.
This ACC, as we look into it, Clemson, I think everybody would agree, is the favorite. Should go ahead and win this and get into the college football playoff. Who is the teams that you think, first of all, we'll start off in Clemson's division. Who's that team or those teams that you believe will challenge the Tigers and could cause some problems if Clemson's not careful?
You know, when you're looking at it from this particular division, you know, there's only really one team that's always been kind of in that two-headed race, and that's Florida State. We don't know what's necessarily going to happen with them, with Willie Taggart being a new coach. Obviously, Francois starting the season off, he's battled through some injuries his whole career, but we really don't know what that looks like right now. So, I mean, I think for Clemson, I mean, they're the only ones that can get in the way of their destiny right now. On the other side of the division, the only team I think can really truly compete against them is Miami. But I don't know how much they sustain with Mark Richt's second year, so it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. I mean, I got kind of a dark horse with Duke winning that side of the division, so we'll see what happens.
You mentioned Florida State, and the one thing I always tell everybody is Florida State is still Florida State. They still have all those 5 stars. They have depth. Right. Probably from a depth standpoint, they can match Clemson's depth more than anybody. And last year was more an anomaly, I think, than the actual thing we're going to see from here on out. You know, Willie Taggart brings a fast-speed offense, tempo offense. You know, when you know about this, and no disrespect, because you had some good offensive linemen, but when your offensive linemen are not as strong, it's good to have a tempo offense because the quarterback's getting the ball quickly out of his hands. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it changes the whole dynamic of everything, and that's what Chad Morris going to do when he brought that offense here. I think we're going to see that a little bit more tempo with Clemson's offense this year, and again with Florida State and the things they're trying to do, you're going to see that more and more. I guess when you're looking at that situation with Taggart being such a new coach over there in that environment, it's really up to seeing if those players are going to buy into that particular culture and listen to what he has to tell them.
Ryan Finley at NC State, probably the most experienced, best quarterback in the ACC. Very impressive young man. And they got some great skilled receivers up there. Granted, they lost 8 starters on defense, so they're going to be reloading over there. What do you expect out of them? Do you think they're a team that can maybe surprise some people this year? A lot of people are thinking they're just going to drop back and fall to 7-5. What are your thoughts on the Wolfpack?
Yeah, I got them 7-5, 8-4, somewhere around that range. I think that Ryan Finley personally can do a lot for himself in the way he performs this season. I got him in that top 8 quarterback range throughout college football. I think the kid has that special arm, and I think he plays the game above the neck. So excited to see what he looks like, excited to see how he progresses. And you know, NC State is one of those teams that you can't necessarily count out. You know, you've got to play that season out. You know, they're one of those games where you can't go in there and lull you to sleep because they can come back and strike. And you know, realistically, I mean, this front four of Clemson defensive line, I mean, any quarterback in this division, any quarterback in this conference or college football period, is going to have a tough time getting that ball off. So if they continue to apply consistent pressure, I mean, there's really no hope for any of these guys.
Well, I would imagine when you also look at, is there a team like Wake Forest or Boston College or both those guys, could they sneak up and get in that top 3 this year? Is this one of the years where one of the little guys actually kind of makes up and gets in that top 3 of the Atlantic Division?
I mean, if you had to go between Wake Forest and Boston College, obviously Boston College is the choice over there. Anthony Brown returning for another year, starting over there. surgery, so we'll see what he looks like if he's being tender on the knee. A.J. Dillon, arguably, the best running back in college football right now. He's stepping up to the plate. So, I mean, it's interesting dynamic over there. I don't really know the whole situation over there, but from an offensive standpoint, they're very strong.
All right, we flip over to the Coastal Division, and I think when we look there, Miami's the obvious favorite, I think. I picked Virginia Tech. A lot of people are down on Virginia Tech this year, but they got the best quarterback, I think, in that Coastal Division coming back in Jackson. They got the best defensive coordinator on that side in Bud Foster. So your thoughts on the Hokies and Miami, and do you think the Hokies can be second or first in that division?
I don't know. The Edmond boys were such a huge part of that defense. Bud Foster is Bud Foster. The guy is legendary. He's going to go down in the College Football Hall of Fame as one of the best defensive coordinators to ever do it. But yeah, Josh Jackson, it's going to be interesting to see how he transitions into this next year. He was a little bit heavy last year, much like I was my sophomore year. See if he slimmed down a little bit, seeing if he can get it together. Another year in that offense, another year in that program does wonders. I'm a huge Fuente fan. The guy brings a lot of energy. He sparks life into that organization.
Offense is fun.
And I think he's going to do some great things, especially being the predecessor behind Frank Pinker. So Virginia Tech's the team to watch out for in the coming years. But it's all about recruiting at that particular point. Right now, man, with Clemson recruiting at such a high level, it's going to be hard for any of these teams to grab the guys that they truly want.
All right, so we got Miami, Virginia Tech. Obviously, Georgia Tech's always up there with Paul Johnson and what they do. But you mentioned it earlier. You think Duke is your dark horse. I like that pick because I like Duke's defense.
Right.
First of all, Coach Cutcliffe does as good a job as anybody with quarterbacks and an offense. And so they're going to be okay on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, I really like the way they play, their tenacity.
Right.
I like the way that they're skilled and they stay within their schemes and they do what they're supposed to. Why is it, though, you think Duke could win the Coastal Division?
Well, because I think their quarterback is going to rally a lot better this year than he did last year. And when you look at that secondary over there at Duke, there was this whole Twitter thing that went on, and Duke got put into like the top 3 in the conference from a secondary standpoint. And they trumped Florida State over there, so there was a lot of heat coming from that. And those players were like, there's no way possible. But Duke is to that point right now. Duke is getting top players for where they're at. And if you get a group of guys collectively that have the same mission and the same mentality, regardless of what the university is from an academic standpoint, they can do something out on that football field.
I like it. So we got Clemson, we know, coming out of the Atlantic, and you saying Duke in the Coastal.
Duke, Miami,
I like it.
Right,
yeah, I like it.
And you like Virginia Tech?
I like Virginia Tech, and then so we go from there. I guess we both agree Clemson is going to win the ACC, get to the college football playoff. So that leads us to now the college football playoff. My 4 teams, obviously Clemson. I think in the SEC. I know Robert's going to be surprised to hear me say something like this, but I think actually Georgia is going to come out of the thing. I don't think Alabama's going to make it this year. I just think this is one of these years where it finally doesn't happen for them. And then I like Ohio State out of the Big Ten, and then my sleeper team is Stanford. I like Stanford. I think they're going to surprise some people. I think they're going to win the Pac-12. Everybody thinks Washington's going to win it.
Yeah.
I'm saying Stanford's going to win it. They got a great running game. Always play great defense. Let's see. I can see it happening. They got a better quarterback. There's my 4, so you tell me your 4.
Well, and the Pac-12 is very interesting when you really think about it. They got some dynamic teams out there. You got Khalil Tate coming over there, Arizona. You got Utah over there. You got Terrell Huntley back. I think that guy's a tremendous talent. You got Arizona State. They got Manny Wilkins returning for his senior year along with Inkill. Harry over there. He's one of the top receivers in college football. So I think it's going to shape out pretty interestingly over there. From my top 4 standpoint, I do have Clemson in there, obviously. At Ohio State, I don't think they lose anything based off of what's happening in the organization as a whole right now, because those guys know what it takes to get it done on the football field. They're experienced. They got veterans out there. I think it's going to be the same result for that season or on that side. I got Oklahoma. I think that Kyler Murray is going to be able to do something special. Has a little bit more dynamicism to him than Baker Mayfield. And then I think my 4th team, Georgia, because you sit there and I think that on the West, I think Auburn beats Alabama.
Yeah, I can see that.
They beat them just straight up this season, and then I think that Georgia continues to progress. I think that Swift makes that next step. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback over there. I know Jake Fromm has obviously done a lot for that organization.
Right.
Freshman, took it to the national championship game. Kid Justin Fields is kind of in the same situation over here right now. He's a tremendous talent, so we'll see how that whole deal plays out. But I got Georgia winning that conference outright.
All right, so I'm going to pick, and I want this to happen because I'm an old school Clemson guy, and I go back to my days when I was a kid, and they played every year. I'm saying Clemson, Georgia in the national championship game. I think it's going to be a good, great rivalry game, and so you're going to, for Clemson and Georgia to play, they're going to play all the way out to California to play for a national championship. Who do you think?
I got Clemson and Georgia as well. Look, and I'm not disagreeing with you here just because. I mean, I think it's a real thing.
I do too. I think it's a real thing
I think you can't draw it up any better than that. I had to go to Vegas right now, put my eyes on it. That's what I'm putting it at.
Yeah, and of course I'm gonna pick the Tigers to win it all. You the same way. I think national championship this year for Clemson, and that's just not two homers saying that. I think I really believe that.
I mean, I think that's just where the state of the program is right now. I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. And like Coach Sweeney says, each game is important because it's a faceless, nameless opponent. Obviously, Clemson's supposed to win the games when we look at the schedule, but you still got to go out there and get it done.
Now, before we get done, one more thing we talked about was Murray for Oklahoma. Yep. I think he's the key to their whole season. If he gets hit one time and he's got that $40 million sitting out there, that's a baseball guy. How is he going to respond to that? Do you think he still stays in the mind that he's a football player, or do you think he starts thinking about, I kind of like to make sure, I take care of my body and I don't get myself in a bad position?
I mean, I think it changes everything. Football was just on the table for him, and that was it. And obviously he goes out there, he lays on the line for these guys. But if he's sitting here and he's looking at 3rd and 3 over here, he's trying to run this guy over to get the first down, or he has that $4 million sitting out there, he's probably going to go with that $4 million. And that's just the nature of the beast, man. So, it's interesting because, he has to lead in a way that his guys are going to believe it.
Right.
And they're going to have to play to his level. But if he can't get to that point because of the baseball situation, I don't know how that necessarily plays out for them. Knowing where he comes from, knowing the family and the background of his dad being such a superb athlete as well. I know that he has the makes and the characteristics of being a tremendous college football quarterback. I think he does that. But, he throws some dollars in there, changed the whole perspective on everything.
You see it right here, man. We're going to have this all year long, Tajh Boyd, breaking it down for us. College football, Clemson football. So we got a lot of stuff coming planned with Tajh. Stay tuned to TCI for more, not just this week, but every week with Tajh Boyd.